B-voy, B-voy, you already know what it is. Best versions of yourself, that's what I'm trying to make y'all. Listen up and I'll help you learn something to help you use in your everyday lives to help improve and further along. When you get to master it, you can help your peers improve, and then if you got kids, you can help your kids improve. I'm always just trying to help out the people and get back to what they originally always knew and unlock all the doors that were closed that we didn't know we had the keys to. That's what B-voy is. It's official, y'all. We live. B-voy, B-voy. Yep. Best version of yourself. It's the podcast and we finally making it happen. It's been a dream of mine for a long time now, just to kind of be able to use my voice. I like to say that my voice is one of my most powerful tools, and I just want to give back and try to help others realize their powerful tools and become best versions of themselves. Because I like to say I'm a dream chaser. Nobody should ever give up on their dreams, no matter how young, no matter how old. Continue to always find ways to get to your dreams. It's not, I can't do it, but it's how can I do it? And that's one of the first steps you got to take. So what I want to dive in today is more based around like relationship based stuff. Because I'm fairly young. I'm only 29. Yeah, I know I look good, right? But I'm only 29. I'm young, but I like to say one of the most valuable things that I value is paying attention, focusing on things that can be applied to your everyday life, especially if you're in a relationship. Like me, I just recently got married last year. Just had my anniversary. It's crazy. Time flies fast. All that being said, I've learned a lot. We had a lot of our ups and downs, round and rounds, roller coaster rides. But I learned a lot about myself through that journey. A lot of things happened with feeling like I couldn't continue, to feeling like, why did I give up? To re-looking at the things that I was going through that I need to correct, that I had things within myself. So I learned a lot. And what I want to give back to you guys today is what I've learned that maybe can help apply in your relationships. So one thing that I got a further understanding is how to react. We all have our triggers, right? We all have the strings that get pulled, that our spouse knows how to pull them and knows how to get us angry or upset. But we got to try to learn to understand, one, our triggers and what gets us upset, because our spouses, they know what gets us there. I know what gets my spouse there. And so it's always something that you have to understand. First, understanding your triggers and what strings get pulled, but, can't be a pushover. Stand your ground, but always try to have calmness when you stand your ground. When you're standing your ground and you have calmness, then you can execute whatever you're trying to get across. And with longer years throughout your time, you'll learn other ways to handle these situations better with trial and error, right? You're not always going to do things perfect, and you're always going to make mistakes. That's part of life. We're imperfect as human beings. That's just how it is. But look, you got to go through your experiences. Experiences are what's going to help you further along to extend your relationship, or to realize the red flags and to get out of something that's very toxic that you shouldn't be in. But you got to know how to decipher the two. So understanding, I like to say, of your spouse is very important. Understanding of the family, understanding of the friends, understanding of what your spouse pays attention to the most. That will help you understand why your spouse reacts the way they react, or why they feel the way they feel. This is like the steps you got to take to fully understanding your spouse. And on top of that, you have to make your spouse realize they got to do that same thing with you. Because you can't, a relationship has two people in it, correct? We all agree. So just one of the spouses understanding their spouse to 100% doesn't win the relationship. It has to go both ways. but it has to start with somebody giving the effort to, establishing that understanding, establishing that I kind of can know what you're going to say before you even say it, without doing it in a disrespectful way, without cutting the individual off to make them not feel like they're being heard or listened to. That's a big thing that I went through. I always felt like I knew what the person was leading up to, so I could further be like, oh, you don't have to explain yourself because I already know where you're going. But that's not always a good thing to do, especially because people don't like being cut off and they want to be heard. So that being said, pay attention to your environment, pay attention to your parents' relationships, pay attention to your friends' relationships. Even sometimes TV movies, they can kind of have an accurate, perspective to relationships as well. So, learn within the environment you live in, pay attention to your family, to the relationships around you, and learn from them. And then ultimately, when you get in a relationship, you learn from your own relationship. So then you can further on, if you have kids one day, help your kids when they get in relationships. Because, no relationship is perfect. But when you do have your problems, you shouldn't necessarily need to go to a therapist. You should be able to be your own therapist in the relationship. Vice versa, with your spouse. You guys should be able to be adults and sit down and talk. Okay, it's not you have the problem. It's not you have the problem. It's we have this problem that we need to ultimately tackle together, because we're in this thing together, right? And that's how you guys got to work. We got to always work together to grow together. I feel like we lose that concept, especially when our emotions get involved. Yeah, and I understand there's problematic situations where emotions should get involved, but they shouldn't be the overruling factor depending on the problem that has occurred. So be mindful in situations. Think about things when they do happen. Focus on your word choice and how you say your words, because little do we know how we say something to somebody, especially if to us our spouse and we're in a problematic situation, it can be taken in the wrong way, because the way you're trying to deliver it, a lot of times you're trying to put out the fire, but you could be bringing the fire to more life depending on how you mention and say the words that you're trying to say. Because at the end of the day, we all want to solve the problem, correct? Sometimes we get a little bit more angry than we should. Sometimes we say things that we shouldn't say. Sometimes we hurt people out of the anger and sadness that the words come out of. And then we realize that, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said that, or we do some reflection, or some people don't even reflect. Some people never even solve the problem. And then what happens then when you don't solve the problem and you just go to the next day and just say, oh, everything is okay? Then what happens? We go into the same problem and continue that cycle. And if you don't break the cycle, then the cycle becomes a volcano eruption that sends everything downhill and usually can force us apart. And if you really love somebody, you don't want that to happen. And if you can stop that from happening or prevent it from happening, you should. And it all comes to, once again, paying attention and focusing on your relationship and ultimately understanding your spouse. I like to say understanding your spouse is close, if not number one, to the importance of a long-lasting relationship. A close second is truth. You got to be honest, and you got to have experiences with each other. That's a third one. I like to say those are the major keys in communicating. I know with all these things, obviously you have to communicate well, because we can't read your mind. Vice versa, the woman can't read the man's mind. So communication is huge. And once again, there is times where it's just like, well, you should know this. Yes, we should know. But sometimes it's just good to be told, because it's not always automatic. And everybody, yes, women and men want a spouse that it should be automatic. but it takes time for things to be automatic. And so give your spouse the benefit of the doubt, but there is, a certain period of time where it should be like, okay, we have said this repetitive times. And if you got to do that for years and years on, then obviously there's a problem. But you got to realize this, and you got to take your notes. And if you do realize that as a problem, make sure you talk and sit down and let your voice be heard, because that's one of the most powerful things you have is your voice. So use it, and use it in a way that you get your point across. Use it in a way that you feel that is productive, and always have reflection in what you say. That ultimately will help you in not only relationship, but also in the work life, in the sports life, and in any aspect of life that you take it. And so I always like to say, with the things that I try to put across to people, is a lot of these things that I talk about when it comes to certain categories like relationships, these things don't only apply to relationship. They can be applied to everything in life, when it comes to teaching, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to job related things. It's like your word choice is huge, not only in a relationship, but in all, parts of and walks of life. So I'm gonna end there. I hope that you guys got something out of this. I know you guys ain't got my name. My name is Marquise Ford. I am starting small. B-voy is my brand, best version of yourself. I got stuff coming out. I hope you guys support this podcast that I'm trying to do, because all I'm trying to do is support and uplift the people, and more people should be doing things that help others, because I like to say, if you know something really well, you should give it back, and to uplift and make the world a better place, one person at a time. That is ultimately my goal, and I hope to see you guys next time.